What is up, everybody? We're back here at King Film Sports for the post-college football Saturday conference championship reactions and bracket playoff update here. Yes, we will have the first 12-team college football playoff bracket announced early on Sunday here, late Saturday night, recording this video after we had some thrilling games. And you are currently looking at the bracket that the playoff committee released on Tuesday, or what the inferred bracket would be based on their ranking. So obviously you have Oregon, who are 12-0 coming into this week at number 1. Another great victory in Indianapolis against Penn State assuredly will stay at that number 1 spot. Then you look at the bottom, Texas at number 2, and obviously they lose today, but was very close in overtime to that Georgia team. Carson Beck obviously goes out at the end of the first half with a throwing arm injury. It will be interesting to hear more about that, but now Texas will drop out of the top 4 seeds, probably to the number 5 seed, but that's a big update there. Then you have SMU in the ACC championship game at the number 3 spot, but they were actually ranked number 8, and they lose to Clemson, but it was not by a big margin. They were down 17 in the fourth quarter, but end up tying it late, and then Clemson hits a long 56-yard field goal at the buzzer to win that one. So Clemson now gets in, and obviously now the debate is, will SMU get in? If they do, it'll probably be at the 11 or 12 line there. Definitely not a top 4 seed as they lose their conference championship. And then you have Boise at the number 4 spot. This was an interesting debate earlier on today after ASU had a big win in the Big 12 title game, and people were saying that ASU deserved to be above Boise, and then perhaps if SMU won, then Boise would be relegated down to a first-round game. But obviously with that SMU loss, they have all but locked up a top 4 spot and a first-round bye. And then you have Penn State at the number 5 spot, and as I mentioned, they lose to Oregon, probably only drop down to the 6, maybe the 7 line, which assumes that Texas will take the number 5 spot, but generally should not be punished too much for losing that game to Oregon. They played pretty competitive there. And then you have at the number 6, Notre Dame obviously did not play this week, and the resume will be under a lot of scrutiny for that loss in week 2 against Northern Illinois, but a couple other big wins and no major slip-ups there. Not really any other close games other than the week 1 big win in College Station against Texas A&M there. But they probably will drop down to the 7, in my opinion, just because of the Penn State and Texas losses in those games. I think those teams will be ranked above Notre Dame, but that will be interesting there. Then Georgia, they obviously get the big win against Texas, probably vaults into the Longhorns number 2 spot in that one. And then the 8-9 matchup, Ohio State and Tennessee did not play this week. I think this matchup will remain unchanged heading into the bracket reveal. Then you look at the other spots, Indiana at 10, do not see any reason to bump them at all, so I think that they'll stay there. And then the 11 spot, Alabama, obviously it will come down to them and SMU in that debate. I think they have cleared Ole Miss and South Carolina. Miami from the ACC, the playoff committee has made it clear that Alabama of those other teams would be the one to get in. And then ASU, as we mentioned earlier, big win in the Big 12 title game. Scatterboo absolutely went off in that one. And now with the SMU loss, they are definitely looking at the top 4 seed there. So now let's get into my bracket prediction. This is what I think it's going to be. As I mentioned, you got Oregon at the 1, obviously. Georgia with the 2 losses goes to the number 2 line, and then Boise at the number 3 and ASU at the number 4, both being conference champions there. As I mentioned, some people saying ASU could be above the Broncos, but I just think Boise ranked 5 spots ahead of ASU coming into this week. It would kind of be tough for the committee to put the Sun Devils above them there, especially when Boise State on Friday night got a big win over a ranked UNLV squad, a team that they beat for the 2nd time this season. So I think that Boise State stays there, but obviously ASU does well to get the first round bye in their own right. And then at the number 5 spot, you've got Texas, as I mentioned, with the close loss to Georgia. Then at Penn State, you've got them at number 6, and then Notre Dame at 7, which would set up an Indiana State showdown between them and Indiana University. That one would be a thrilling matchup there in the cold. And then another matchup in the cold, Ohio State and Tennessee, one of those classic matchups of a southern team going up north there into the frigid temperatures in Columbus. That would be a very interesting matchup. And then Clemson, I've got them hopping up to the 11 spot. They were ranked number 17, but assured of being in because they are the conference champion. And then I'm taking SMU at that number 12 spot. Some people would argue for Alabama, but I just think that it was such a close loss. You can't really penalize them for the extra game. That would mean that both of their losses this season were within a field goal, obviously lost on their home field earlier in the season to a ranked BYU squad. So ultimately, I just think that their resume is better than Alabama, who are 9-3 at this point. So let's look at the first round matchups here. Ohio State, Tennessee obviously remains unchanged. We saw some look ahead lines for this game. We're around 7 to 9 points here for the Buckeyes. That would be a very interesting game. Then you have a Lone Star State showdown, Texas and SMU. I probably think that this spread is at least 2 touchdowns in favor of Texas. And remember, that game would be played in Austin Would be interesting to see the fan breakdown. I'm guessing it would be Longhorns about 90 to 95%, given they are the home team and have the bigger fan base. Then Penn State and Clemson, another example of a Southern team going up north. This one would be very interesting in Happy Valley here between these two teams. Dabo Swinney versus James Franklin in that matchup. And as for a point spread in this one, I'm not really sure what to expect there. I think it'll be maybe around a touchdown in favor of Penn State. Big home field advantage there, but we will see. And then Notre Dame versus Indiana here in the 7-10 matchup. Notre Dame with a strong home field there, but obviously Indiana not too far away. And I'm guessing for a point spread here would be around 8 or 9 points. But you guys can let me know what you guys think the point spreads for those matchups would be in the comments down below. And I do find it interesting in this scenario how there are not many rematches coming to the fray. Definitely in the first round, we see no conference matchups and no rematches from the regular season. The only potential one that we could even have in the quarterfinal would be Ohio State, Oregon. Obviously, they played a doozy in Autzen earlier this season in mid-October, and they would play on a neutral site if Ohio State were to beat Tennessee, but nothing that the committee can really do to prevent that. I think that this Ohio State-Tennessee game is locked in an 8-9 matchup there, but you see any of the other matchups would not be the case. And then we go to the alternative scenario where Alabama does make it into the playoffs. Again, I think this is very unlikely here, but Alabama would be the 11 seed, SMU would be out, and then Clemson would be the 12 there, and that would be a very interesting Texas versus Clemson matchup in the 5-12. Again, I think that spread would be around 2 touchdowns in favor of the Longhorns on their home turf there. And then Penn State and Alabama, this one would be very interesting, and I would be very interested to see a point spread in that matchup. I'm guessing that Penn State would be favored, but only slightly so, maybe by only a field goal there. And obviously you have the storyline, once again, a Southern team going up north in frigid Happy Valley there. So that one would be very interesting, and you obviously see that perhaps the logos and the matchups look a little bit better when Alabama is in the tournament, so maybe that is incentive for the playoff committee to include them, but we will see. So once again, this is my final bracket prediction after all of the action on Conference Championship Saturday. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Who makes it in, SMU or Bama, and what do you guys think of these first round matchups? As always, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.